Hey, what's going on? This is Barry from the band Shinedown, and you're listening to my weekly mixtape with Brian Colburn. And I say you should listen to it because he's my new best friend, and we listened to a lot of the same music growing up, and you're going to have a lot of really cool, eclectic things on the show that from all genres of music. But importantly, just listen, have fun.
Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Tonight, I am thrilled to be joined by Barry Kerch, drummer for the band Shinedown. Barry, welcome to the show, my friend.
Good to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'd like to start by asking all of my first-time guests, what does the word mixtape mean to you?
I guess, I'm a child, product of the 70s and child of the 80s. For me, mixtape was the thing. And to me, it's two things. Either you're making the mixtape for your girlfriend, the love of your life, and you're getting all the songs you can to prove to her your love. But for me, more importantly, it was getting those songs that you heard on the radio and sitting there in a bedroom with your little cassette player going, record. Okay, got it. Got that song. Oh, that's a new song from this. Because back in those days, you couldn't, you had to listen to the radio to hear that song. And once you had it on that tape, you had that song. So it's this nostalgia and joy of really having to dig deep to search out music, which you don't have to do anymore.
That's part of the reason I do this show each week, is to try to bring back some of that joy of finding that song. Because when you look for things on Spotify, everything's so instantaneous that the joy of discovering that new song, it's almost watered down compared to the way it was when we were growing up.
I agree. And I guess I'm a curmudgeon in that way because I don't like the instant gratification of the internet these days and social media and all that kind of stuff. Though it's a wonderful tool, I get frustrated sometimes because I do miss those times of being introduced to a new band. And it's like, oh, my friend had this CD that he passed me and I finally heard it. And it was like, oh, wow, what is this? That's how I got introduced to Nine Inch Nails. I'm an 80s metalhead. I'm playing tennis in high school. I'm on a tennis trip, and my friend Bao Win, he's Pretty Hate Machine CD, and I didn't give it back to him. I kept listening to it, and that's why I'm a diehard Nine Inch Nails fan, because that was a pivotal moment in my life that changed my taste in music. And it's those happy accidents or those neat surprises that make music so much fun and personal for yourselves.
And that it is. So let's now dive into the reason we're here tonight, and that is to talk all things Shinedown. And I'd like to kind of start from the beginning, maybe a top level approach here.
Sure.
Could you talk about the evolution of the band's music that's taken place over the last 24 years and counting?
Wow. How much time do we have? It's grown. I look back on it now, and when Shinedown started, I was 25 years old. And I played like a 25-year-old person, a 25-year-old musician. I only had that much experience getting in there. And the rest of us as well, we were all around the same age. Brent was a little younger. Jason at the time and Brad at the time were a couple years older. So we were right within a year or two of each other. And we were playing what we felt at the time and what we grew up with. And the early sound of Shinedown, I think, had quite a bit more Southern influence that came from, Jason and Brad growing up in the Jacksonville area, in the Northeast Florida area. I grew up in the panhandle of Florida, but I'm a military brat, so my exposure was different. They grew up deep in that scene of Southern rock and Skynyrd and stuff and all those things. And Brent, being a Tennessee boy who grew up primarily listening not to Southern rock, though he's a Southern rock fan, but he also listened to a lot of Motown and things like that. He learned to sing by singing Otis Redding because his parents were very religious, and he would, when they found his Poison cassette in his house, they threw it out and said, you need to listen to this, so it wasn't allowed. So what was cool about Shinedown, especially in those early days, was the mix of those things and the excitement of being new to professional studios and new to that side of the craft that I think has been honed over the years. And then it grew. The second record was a total different journey. It was more trippy and things of that nature, and it was kind of more raw because we were doing it almost home studio based because we didn't have a lot of time to do it, because the label's like, okay, first record's done, we need another one in 6 months. And we were having to write and get it done, and there was a lot of pressure because though the first record did really well, it didn't do well enough to where they weren't worried about us having a second record. It was like, we got to get through this hump or we might not be here. And the band at that time was pretty tumultuous. There was a lot of infighting, there was a lot of things going on that made it difficult to be, even though we were a band of brothers, it was just a hard time. And then growing into Sound of Madness is when I kind of everything changed, and there was Dave Bassett was brought in with Brent to write some stuff, and the writing I think became more sophisticated. Brent really focused more on his lyrics, and there he had something to prove. All of a sudden, this thing went off in his brain, and there was more of something to prove. Like you listen to Sound of Madness, the song compared to like 45. 45 was like the world's looking in at me. Sound of Madness was like I'm gonna be that person. And that's what really changed the trajectory of our career. And then, also we had new members coming in. So when we got to like Amaryllis and Threat and Attention up through Planet, it was really having Eric as a juggernaut of a songwriter and player and engineer and producer. He's produced the last 2.5 records and he's produced this one that we're working on now. So that changed our sound, but I think for the better. We became more open to, well, if we want to put a keyboard on the song or we want to put a drum machine on the song, why not? We don't, it is always going to come down to vocals, bass, drums, guitar, but we were willing to just throw caution to the wind and go, this is what the song needs. I don't care if it needs a mandolin and me clapping in the background and that's the drum track, that's the drum track. And I think we got better as songwriters and better as players. I would hope anybody who's in this industry continues to grow as a player. I still take lessons. I still work on my craft. There's still a lifetime's worth of things to learn on my drums and to learn in the studio and how to make these things happen. Every time I get with Eric, I'm like, dude, you're taking me to college every time. I learn a new technique and I learn a new thing. And we learned so much early, God rest his soul. But Doug, the engineer on Sound of Madness, Amaryllis, and Attention, Attention, and I think a song or two on Threat, unfortunately passed away. And his knowledge was scary because he's an LA guy. He grew up in those studios. He just knew how to engineer. And he'd be like, what do you mean you haven't tried this mic technique where I take this crappy Radio Shack mic and I put it against this wall and I, blow it up with a compressor, but check out what it does to the drums when you turn it up. And you're like, oh, God, how did you think of that? So you learn over the years and you hone your craft and in a very long, I can be long-winded, but a very long story short, I think we've just become better at our personal instruments, better song crafters, and a little bit less cautious, a little bit more of, I don't give a shit. This is the song we're going to do. This is the songs that you're going to get from Shinedown. And you can never change Brent's voice, right? It never leaves Shinedown. It still sounds like Shinedown, but I don't want to make Leave a Whisper again. I love that time period and I have nothing but fond memories. And I have no regrets over our whole lexicon of music, but I don't want to make that again. I got to make what we're feeling right now. And that's the most important thing.
You brought up something about working with Eric and what he's brought to you. And I talked to him about his album that's being released this week as well. Yeah. But I'd like to talk about your writing and approach to recording drums, because one thing that I mentioned to Eric that has always impressed me about what you bring to the album is you're always willing to play to the strength of the song, no matter what that is, be it the timing changes in unity to where you kind of sit back in a song like A Symptom of Being Human from Planet Zero. How do you decide? Is it during the writing or the recording session where you should be laying into a song and bringing that metal background into play, or sitting back and letting kind of the song breathe and speak for itself?
It definitely becomes song dependent, and it happens in the studio when it's time to track the drums. Because a lot of times within Shinedown, I get presented a demo form, and it's going to have, a finger drummed programmed kind of placeholder that goes, okay, I see where this is going. And then it's up to me to form what's going to happen in the fills and things of that nature, because I am unabashedly not apologetic to say that I am not a songwriter. I do not have that ability. I think in rhythms. I don't think in melody. I am a proud drummer. And that being said, early in your career as a drummer, if you are a drummer and are taking this, you want to play all those cool things you learned. And it's look at me, look at me, look at me, look at this cool thing I did, look at these stick twirls, all these things. And there is a place for something. And maybe certain bands that you're in, if you listen to like a Rush, Mastodon, whatever you name it, those drummers have a little bit more freedom to go, look at me, and they play a little bit more wild stuff. That's not what Shinedown is. And for me, probably when it goes back to even the last question you asked about the evolution of Shinedown and their songwriting, I've learned humility in my music and in my playing. And I think that's the most important thing a drummer can learn is humility in your playing to play the song. You are not the star. You are the drummer. You are the support. And you should wear that as a badge of courage and a badge of honor. That's something to be proud of, to sit back and go, I'm going to hold this band down and make that song feel as good as that song should feel. every single time. So when I'm there live and I'm locked in and everything's vibing, I can look at my guys who could be a little bit crazier, maybe get off a little bit on the guitar, or something falls apart. I'm not going to F up because I'm holding it down for my band. I'm the support. And when it comes to recording, that's when that really happens. Like, what does this song need? And we'll talk about it sometimes, especially with Eric and I. We have such a good working relationship at this point that, he's not afraid to go, oh, Barry's going to get pissed because I want to change this. It's like, no, what's your idea? What do you hear? What are you hearing that I'm not hearing? Or vice versa. I go to him and go, hey, man, it'd be really cool if we did a little clap in this area or a tambourine here. What do you think about a shaker tambourine mix? And he'll go, oh, that's too much because it's going to step on the vocals here. Oh, you're right, because you already hear the vocals and I haven't heard them yet. We're doing the drum track. So it's those kind of conversations, especially when you're starting from the ether, to go, yeah, I think that's a good idea. But that fill, as cool as it was, can you shorten it a bar? Well, why? It was a cool fill. He's like, yeah, it was, but the vocal's still going right there and you're stepping all over it. Cool. Let's do a shorter fill or a longer fill. Hey, man, we need this to build into this chorus where everything's just going to come in and hammer you in the face. That's what I'm going to do. And that's my job, is to service the song. And I pride myself on that. And my favorite drummers are groove drummers, more so than the show off drummers. As much as I appreciate their talents, I'd much rather listen to Charlie Watts from the Stones, God rest his soul, just lay it down, or Steve Jordan just laying it down. That makes you feel something. Drums are supposed to make you feel something and just nod your head. And that's what I want to do.
Oh, Steve Jordan, man. I saw him this past summer with the Rolling Stones, and as sad as I am that Charlie wasn't back there, he holds down a groove like no other, and he brought this swagger to the Rolling Stones that I don't want to say that is better, because it's not better, it's just different. And there's something about his playing that it's distinctly Steve Jordan. So I love that you brought him
I agree.
on.
And I think he brought, not that he's a super young man, but he brought youth back to the Stones. I think there was an article, it was either Jordan was talking or it was Mick Jagger, but he was like, yeah, all of a sudden we're playing the tempos that we used to play back in the 60s. And we hadn't done that in a while because, we're all getting older. And Steve Jordan's like, no, this is the tempo you used to do it at. And so it's pushing them, which is entertaining too. It's neat to see how those things happen,
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You said something before that I actually want to challenge you on, because you said that you're not a writer. But I'm going to challenge that a little bit, because I have dents in my steering wheel from the Sound of Madness and Adrenaline that say otherwise, because the drums really are a piece of what makes those songs so massive and so emotional. The opening drums in the Sound of Madness are so thunderous that when that kicks, you feel it in your bones. And I want to applaud that contribution that you bring to the band, because,
thank you.
The drummer's got to get some love every now and then. And as a bass player, I look out for my rhythm section, man. I have to say that.
I'll take that love, and I appreciate it. I guess in the industry side of the things, drums is not part of songwriting. How that happened over the years, I have no idea. But in the industry, the business side of things, doesn't matter what I play, it's not part of the songwriting. It's about the melody. and so maybe that's a small point of contention with me, because I think it takes all sums to make the song great. If a different drummer played on Second Chance, it might have been a different fill there, and that's one of my most recognized fills. It's simple, super simple, but it sticks out, and that's a part in the song that really makes that song what it is. So
that's poignant, absolutely poignant. Now, on the flip of the heavier side of things, when you have a song like A Symptom of Being Human, the first time I heard that song, the hair on my arm stood up, not just from the lyric perspective, because it's a song that hits home for a lot of people, and it's made a lot of important conversations happen. But musically, the fact that you just sat back and kind of did this shuffle beat made the song 100 times more powerful than had you brought the whole kit into the fold. And I'd love to know the mindset behind that, because the song is perfect in its simplicity almost. And I don't mean to make that sound as a negative.
No. I think some of the best songs out there are perfect in their simplicity, because it's a tendency for all of us, especially when producing and recording, to throw the kitchen sink at it. And then sometimes you just have too much. I think for that song, when I remember vividly being in the studio with Eric and talking about it, because the demo was quite a bit different, even maybe a little more sparse. We just had, it wasn't an afterthought. The vocals were there and the melody was there, but the music, the backing music, really was just very basic and rudimentary in a demo format. And in talking about it, it's like we need the song to grow, because tempo wise, if it didn't grow, it could fall flat easily. Even though the lyrics are so good, it needs to just constantly grow as the song is going on to keep the interest of the listener. And we looked at it as, I remember he and I talking, and I don't know which one of us said it first, but we're like, we need to treat this like an orchestra. And so I turned on my high school and college brain when I played in the orchestras and stuff and went, we're going to treat this like this. So I didn't even set up a drum kit. All those ports were recorded as if it were a concert setting. Upright bass drum, concert snare drum, cymbals were done afterwards. It was absolutely done as if I were in a orchestra. And that's, I think, what gave the lift to the song. You know, you listen to certain orchestra pieces where when the drums finally come in, it's like, oh, it just hits you. That was the whole premise behind Symptom.
I know that you did not have any part of the lyric writing in this one. I know
Yeah.
that, that was between Eric and Brent, but this is a heavier subject, mental health, anxiety. It's something a lot of people struggle with. I personally struggle with it.
Yeah.
And there's such a humble connection in these lyrics to these songs. And I'm curious to know if these songs are as meaningful to the band as the fans that have really found hope and purpose from these words.
Yes and no. I think it hits differently. For the fans, it's something they can relate to and take as their own as a, hey, they're writing this about me and it's an outlet. For us, it's the therapy of getting those feelings out because it's a true story about us. You know, that's the one thing I love about my band. The one thing I cherish about Shinedown and always have is the lyrics are true stories, every last one of them. And it's not about, just making something up. So that song is about mental health because it's about Eric's head and Brent looking at him and them looking at each other. And it's about dealing with that and realizing that all of us have our issues and the things we go through on any day. I'm kind of the rock of the band. I'm the one that takes care of my boys. And I'm the one that all the problems from my band and crew come to me. They always come through me because I guess I'm easy to talk to or something. But everybody, I'm that person that I'm the vampire. They just dump it all on me. And I'm there to support my guys because yes, I have my good days and bad days. I am a human as well, but I'm a little more solid than they are. I don't deal with the same things they do. Brent with his past addiction issues, Eric with his depression that's just ungodly. And even Zach, he's a very emotional guy. And I think all artists really truly are led by emotion more so than most. I think we have to be creative. And I think, that's why Eric and Brent are so good at lyrics because I think they're so emotionally damaged. They can just get it out there and that's their therapy. So I think, are these songs equally as important to us? Yes, in that it is our therapy and we're able to get it out there. But when people outside of us, when the fans take ownership, we have a different love with that song because now we get to see it affect other people and like, holy shit, we put that together and they get to feel that. And when I look at the audience and I see people crying or laughing or jumping and that emotion, it's like a drug for me in that we created this for you and you're able to feel something and have an escape from your everyday life for just a moment. It's the best thing ever.
What was the first Shinedown song for you personally that made you realize that the band had something special?
45.
All the way back.
Yeah. Because I was given that in a demo form for my audition for the band. I was given that and Lacerated off the first record because I was I think, seventh drummer to try out. And so we go into a practice space here in Jacksonville, Florida, and they'd give me those two songs, said, learn these, learned them, played them. They're like, oh, good, cool. You know the songs. Tomorrow we want you to go in a studio here locally and just record a demo with real drums on it. Because at that point it was just a demo without drums or whatever. Great. And they said, we're going to do 45. No problem. Go in there with my busted up kit, old heads because I wasn't prepared, some cracked cymbals, but it had a vibe. And I went in there and I recorded 45. And it just felt good. And it was great. Fast forward, we end up in LA, finally get the green light from Atlantic Records. We're finally found a name for ourselves. We're in LA recording the first record. And we record this massive version of 45 and put an orchestra on it, did all these things, and it was great. Getting ready to release the record, our A&R guy goes, man, there's something special about the demo version of 45. And we all agreed, and that's the one you hear on the record. That's my audition.
Wow.
That's how I got into this band, was that recording, that song, and that busted up kit. That's the original demo version of 45 that changed everything. But we all knew there was something in that song, and that was the first time I knew this band has something.
Wow. That reminds me of when I read the story about Dimebag using the 4-track demo for the opening riff to Cowboys from Hell. on the actual album because they couldn't replicate the sound that they got from that cassette in the studio.
Sometimes you just get handed a gift and you just got to take it.
Well, as the band is building up to Shinedown 8, there are a ton of songs from the catalog that have become staples.
Yeah.
So much so that you have more songs than you can play in any given night at a concert, unless you did the 3-4 hours for a night.
I don't think Brent's voice would last 3-4 hours.
But there are some tracks that I think are important to the band's legacy. Personally, maybe, but Adrenaline, the opening track from Amaryllis, or I Dare You from Us and Them, that haven't been broken out over the last few tour cycles. How does the band make the difficult decision over which songs get kind of shuffled in and out when crafting that tour set list as the catalog continues to grow?
It's very difficult. We fight like cats and dogs about it sometimes. Zach is really good at putting a set list together, and a lot of times he'll come up with like 3 or 4, and then we kind of talk about those, because Eric and I you guys just tell us what you want to play. Because at this point, I'm tired of arguing with you, and the songs I want to hear are maybe not the ones. And then we really have to look at our fans, and you can, it's one of the great things about the internet now is you can look at the plays of songs. You can look at the views of videos, and you can go, that, who would have thought that, the Monsters video is one of our biggest watched songs of all time. Well, we have to play that song. But we want to play some of the new stuff. And I'd love to play Adrenaline again. That's a fun one for me to play live.
Oh, it's a badass drum beat.
I'd love to play Black Cadillac. Black Cadillac was a blast, and that actually was a single in the UK. So when we go there, we can play that song. Over here, people don't really know it. It's a deep cut. Cyanide Sweet Tooth off of Sound of Madness, another fun one that I love. It's just getting harder and harder, and you can only fit so much in 90 minutes, and there's curfews. So we can only go up to the curfew, It's like, I'd love to play 3 more songs.
All right, so I have to follow up then. You're given full carte blanche. The band just says, you know what, Barry? It's on you. Come up with a set list tonight. Would the set list be similar to what people see on any given night, or would you be throwing out some personal curveballs?
It would definitely not be the norm. There would be curveballs. I can tell you there's certain songs I wouldn't play. I don't want to hear Simple Man again. It's not even our song. I don't want to hear it anymore. I know the fans love it. I'm over it. I'm over not playing during that 5-minute escapade of a Skynyrd song. That one's gone. So it's easier to tell you what I guess I would get rid of for a minute. 45, as much as my heart loves that song, kind of overplaying it. Let me put something else in. I would probably play I Dare You again. I would play Cyanide. I'd get some deep cuts in there. One of Brent's least favorite songs that we've ever recorded, Better Version, off the first record. I actually really enjoy playing because the drum parts on there are a lot of fun. So I'd make him sing that again. And then, what I do is I would probably do a poll on our socials and go, what do you guys really want to hear that are the deep cuts? I know you want to hear Second Chance. I know you want to hear Symptom. I know you want to hear Sound of Madness, and I get it. We should play those songs. What are the other ones? And I'd build a set list completely off of that. And then I'd end on a big song.
I was going to say, I told Eric that one of the songs that I have for the last 4 years wondered how it didn't make attention was A New Way to Die, the song that ended up on the Walmart exclusive download edition, and Japan got that track on the CD, but us in the US didn't. That song is pardon the pun, an absolute monster. That would be my vote.
That would be fun because we've never played that together as a band live ever.
Really?
That was recorded, and then we never looked at it again. I've never played that song with my band members all in one room, ever. So that would actually be a lot of fun.
Well, on the flip side to the deeper cuts, are there any Shinedown songs that you guys could never skip for fear of the chaos that might ensue?
Second Chance, for sure. Symptom, I think, at this point. Monsters. Unfortunately, Simple Man, because we tried that one. We dropped it once, and we got a lot of backlash. Enemies, especially live. People love that song live, and it's a fun one to play. I don't mind playing it. Unity, and I don't enjoy playing Unity. I don't.
Really?
No,
I'm not going to lie. That surprises me because there's something that's going on in the song. I don't want to say it's necessarily the timing.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It kind of it does that shift, which sometimes I find distracting for my own self when I'm playing, because that's one of those where I played for what the song needed, but it wasn't exactly a natural motion for me, what I wanted to play in my head. It was more like coming to that compromise when we were creating that song in the studio. Like, We needed to do this. Can you play this? Yeah, but I wouldn't play it that way. Yeah, but we need you to play that. Cool, let me play that. So when you take it to a live, I'm always going, this is doesn't feel natural to me. It's not what I would have necessarily done. Not that it'd be very different, but it's like writing with your opposite hand for a second. I wouldn't have done that, but that's what the song needs. So I'm gonna have to do that. So that's why Unity kind of gets under my skin. But it's a crowd favorite and it's a great song and it should be played and it's got a great message.
Well, are there any plans on this tour this year to maybe shuffle around some songs, some surprises? Because you've done that in the past where the band will disperse throughout the audience and you'll do a kind of a random pick of the night. Are there plans to do that this time around too?
We've had a lot of talks about that. Just recently, we were in New York together, filming the videos and stuff for the latest releases, Dance Kid Dance and 365. Yes. Will there be something? There will be. Have we pinpointed what that's going to be yet? We haven't. Is the show going to be bigger, better, different than what we did last time? It has to be. We have to always change it up. It's, still going to be those songs, but we definitely have to put on, we pride ourselves on putting on a show, and we appreciate the fans that spend the shit tons of money it takes to go to shows these days because of service fees. So we better give them the show and the release that they deserve, and we're going to.
Well, while you were in New York, you also shot some footage that went out on social media of the band in front of this venue. It's off the top of my head here. Let me think about it. Madison Square Garden. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first time Shinedown's ever played the Garden?
This will be the first time I've ever stepped in that venue.
How is that possible? I feel like that's just impossible over 25 years that no bill ever made its way through those hallowed doors. I'm from New Jersey. I'm allowed to say hallowed doors.
Yeah, well, they are. I mean, it's a bucket list. It's a bucket list place to play, especially if you're from the States. It's Red Rocks and there, MSG. Those are the two that everybody says they want to get to, and maybe the Forum out in LA. I don't know how, because we've been on big tours before. I know that Madison Square Garden is notoriously hard to play because of the union rules and it just being in the heart of the city. It's very notoriously hard for bands to play, and it's cost prohibitive to put on shows there. That's why a lot of times when you see artists play Madison Square Garden, they do 2 nights. The first night's to pay for Madison Square. The second night's to pay the crew. So it is notoriously difficult to play.
Well, I guess that explains Fish's Baker's dozen run there then.
Yeah, right. But we just said to our booking agent on this this was probably October, November of last year, maybe even before that. We said, I don't care what you do, get us in Madison Square and get us there on the weekend. We have to play it. It's just ridiculous that we haven't. And I am pinching myself that I get to do it. And actually, it's funny you ask. I was sitting at the dinner table with my wife and daughter an hour ago because we had to eat old person's dinner. We eat early because my daughter has swim and my daughter has swim in the evening. So we eat at like 4:00.
Basketball, I know the feeling, man.
Yeah, you get it. I'm like, what do you mean I'm eating at 4:00? Fine, because she swims from 5 until 8. But we were just talking about, I'd really like them to be at that show. But the next weekend is summer champs for her swim. And she's like, Dad, I don't know that I want to miss. And I'm like, I can't be selfish for me just because I want you to be there. You have to live your life. And she takes swim very seriously. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I think it's safe to say this is a pretty historic show for the band.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that you guys might consider, I don't know, capturing the show for a future live Blu-ray or something along those lines?
You never know. We haven't talked about that. I'll tell you that we did record one on the end of the Planet Zero tour, and we still haven't released it. I'm not sure why. I know the footage is done, so I would love to. And I know the fans would love something live. And I actually, personally, just as a fan of music, I like to watch the live stuff. When I'm watching my favorite bands on YouTube or whatever, or even in the early days when they'd release a VHS or a DVD, that's the way I wanted to see the band. Like the Peter Gabriel Secret Live World Tour videos. Like,
there you go.
Oh my God, this is the best show I've ever seen in my life, So never say never. Don't know yet.
All right. Well, I want to turn the conversation to philanthropy for a moment here.
Yeah.
Last year, the band released hot sauces that were in conjunction with the Torchbearer Company, and that included Attention Attention Mango Habanero Sauce, Symptom Chipotle Garlic, and Devour Pineapple Jerk, with a portion of the proceeds of these going to Musicians on Call, which is a nonprofit that brings live music to the bedsides of patients, families, and caregivers in hospitals. Can you talk about the band's mindset about giving back over the years and why you guys do ventures such as this one?
I think when you are lucky enough to put yourself in a position to where you can give back, you should. And the four of us being from the backgrounds we come from being, I guess, we grew up with good parents that taught us values, and taught us to give instead of take as much as you possibly can, and now that we have the ability to, why wouldn't we? It's I think you should, and I think it warms your heart probably more than anything else. It's just what you should do if you have the opportunity. If you can drop a nickel in a bucket for somebody that really needs it, then just do it. And don't tell everybody that you do. I don't go out there and say, hey, I've done this and this and this and this for charity. We've done a lot for different places. We have. It's not about the attention you get from it. It's just about doing it. And I've got the ability now.
And I want to bring that up because back in 2019, I caught the band's tour in Guilford, New Hampshire when it was Shinedown, Bad Flower, Dinosaur Pile Up, and Broken Hands.
Mm-hmm.
And on that tour, I'll never forget this, Dinosaur Pile Up had the band's stage banner draped over their amplifiers because it had broken. And my wife and I talked about that. I said, oh my God, this poor band on the ride home, they have this opportunity to come from the UK, share this tour of the States. They're introducing their music to people all over the country. What a shit thing to happen to them that it broke. And not even a couple of days later, I see the article that you guys went out and got them a new backdrop for the rest of the tour. That's unheard of. Usually the vibe is that it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world on the rock scene, but you guys are going against that grain and showing that it's a community. And yeah. I know you won't applaud the band for doing it, but I wanted to applaud the band for doing something like that because I'm a huge fan of Dinosaur Pile Up because of Shinedown introducing me to them.
Right. And I can tell you why one of the reasons we do things like that. And all I can do is give thanks to Three Doors Down. When we were a young band, first record had just come out, Three Doors Down took us out. And they ended up taking us out for, I think, 9 months total on that, was the Beyond the Sun tour. When they were at the top of their game, I mean, they were the biggest thing in rock at the time. And we were the dumbest band in rock at the time. We were young punk kids making all the mistakes, didn't know how to load in properly, didn't know how to do it. And instead of them, berating us as some bands do, or some bands' crews do, it's typically not the band, it's the other band's crew that, treats the opening band like shit. They went, hey, let me show you how you can do that better. Let me show you how to wrap a cable properly. All these things that you don't learn as a baby band that you have to learn later in life. Or, hey, I see you running audio this way. Let me help your audio guy because you guys are taking way too much time getting on and off the stage. Let's help you out. And they helped us for 9 months and taught us so much and didn't ask for a thing aside from, hey, hope you guys had a good time. And we took that to heart, all of us. And especially Brent and myself, now that, that the lineup has changed, but I'll never forget the grace of that band. And I'll tell you this too, out of all the bands we've toured with, I can barely count on 3 fingers bands I would never want to tour with again. The vast majority of the bands out there, including the huge ones like Kiss and Iron Maiden, even Van Halen, there's a reason they stuck around for a long time. And it's because of what they do. They might not like each other, but their band and their crew takes very good care of the opening bands. And that's, I think, shows why they stand the test of time. And I want to stand the test of time as well. And it's about helping those around you. It is a community. We're all working just as hard, and especially a band like Dinosaur Pile Up. I know how expensive it is to cross the pond, especially as a baby band. What's it going to take out of us to throw a little bit of money together and go, hey man, get your name out there? That's simple. That's a non-starter, non-question, really.
Well, when I bring my family to see a Shinedown show, I know they're going to get some diversity in the music.
Sure.
Just for the last few years, for example, Papa Roach, Jelly Roll, Spirit Box, The Pretty Reckless. And now this year, you're touring with Bush, as well as Morgan Wade, who was also a guest on this show in the past. Knowing her music, similar to Jelly Roll, is like a country/rock. You had mentioned earlier in our conversation that you guys kind of have those roots in the Southern rock backgrounds. Is that why you kind of diversify the lineup of the night, get a little bit of that Southern rock with a little bit of the heavier side of things?
I think we just want to make it interesting for the audience and for ourselves. We could do the same tour and aside from always somehow touring with Papa Roach because we love those guys, you want to mix it up. Yes, Papa Roach is on the chart. Breaking Benjamin's on the chart. We could go with all those bands that are our peers and on the same charts as us and everything else, but why not stir it up? We were so lucky enough to get Jelly Roll to open for us, and then the next thing you know, he's the biggest thing in the world. I'm happy for him. That's great. I'm glad we could even be a part of your ascension to the top. And I hope the best for Morgan Wade too. And we also have Beartooth on the spring run.
Yes.
I'm just a fan of the band. That's going to be fun. I like to see something different, and I like to see a female crushing it in this industry, especially in the alt rock countryside, because it still is pretty hard for a female in this industry, especially if you're going to lean that rock side. Spirit Box is a great example of that.
Yes.
Why not support our fellow friends and females and people that are working this business? So we want it to be different. We don't want it to be the same thing. We don't want it to be the greatest playlist of active rock radio. We want it to be everywhere, because if you're a music fan, you listen to everything. You look through what I've played in the past month, it's all over the place. It doesn't make sense. But that's how I was feeling that day. I was listening to P-Funk the other day just because I love P-Funk and I was in that mood. Tomorrow I could be listening to Maiden again and whatever. Who cares?
I like the way you think, man, because this show, every week, it's a different topic or a different genre. And some people have actually reached out to me saying, man, you're all over the place with music. And I in my brain, my response is there any other way? Like, I feel like if you love music, it's just, I want to consume all of it.
I always tell people, and I tell my daughter this a lot because she listens to music and she's got her own music that she listens to. And I go, I don't care what you listen to as long as it's makes you feel something and you feel good. Obviously, I'm going to monitor her because she's just 14. So, I don't want to listen to certain things, but she gets into the Spotify's, iTunes, those things, and she finds her own lane. And she's more of a pop girl than I thought she'd be. Because initially when she was coming up, we listened to Deftones together and Slipknot, and she enjoyed that. Now she's listening to Imagine Dragons and Benson Boone, and that's her thing. And I'm like, does it make you feel good? Yeah, okay, great. Because that's what I did as a kid.
Amen. As a father of two girls, I applaud that because my daughters both listen to as much Taylor Swift as they do the Interrupters. And because of me, I've taken them to see bands like Lamb of God and Metallica and John Fogerty and ZZ Top. I want them to go off into the world, if nothing else, having a musical education that comes from a little bit of everything and let them kind of form their own path.
Absolutely. You have to, because eventually they will. They're not going to listen to your music, but I listen to some of my parents' music. Certain things that my parents listen to, I love. Beach Boys, Allman Brothers, Phil Collins and Genesis. Absolutely. My parents introduced me to that. They wouldn't have introduced me to Nine Inch Nails. It's just the way it goes. And nor would they listen to it. They'd say it's a bunch of shit, but it's that's the fun journey of music. And things hit everybody differently. There's bands out there right now that people love that I'm like, why? I don't get it. But somebody does because they're huge. That's the love of music.
Subjective. Absolutely subjective.
Absolutely.
Now, when I spoke to Eric a couple of weeks back about his solo album, I Had a Name, he explained that Shinedown 8 would, spoiler alert, not be a concept album. So after back-to-back concept albums, Inattention, Attention, and Planet Zero, for you as the drummer, do you find it a disappointment or a relief not going the concept album route?
Thank God it's not a concept record. I had a great time with Attention and Planet Zero. Attention was purposely a concept record. Planet Zero just happened to become one because of the time period, recording it during COVID. We were talking about what was going on in the world, and oh shit, we wrote another concept record. We purposely said, can we just get a collection of songs together that are fun and put out a record, like an old school rock and roll record? And that's what this one will be.
Well, the band just released a new double A-side single, 365, along with Dance Kid Dance, which I'll play a clip of now.
Social
Now, Eric brought this track up briefly when he and I spoke, but we didn't get into the story behind the song. So can you talk about how Dance Kid Dance came together during the writing and recording sessions for that one?
That one came together really with those guys. I didn't hear it until it was completely done. Vocals are there. And even then I had to go, I'm not sure what they were writing about initially. And for me, I think it was kind of the tongue-in-cheek Dance Kid Dance. But then if you really listen to the lyrics, the pills will make you dance. It's a lot darker. It's very tongue-in-cheek and makes you want to rock out. But if you listen to it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is a little darker than what you think. And I think it stems from the experience that Brent had during his addiction days and really knowing way too much about those things and overcoming that and really kind of not making a statement like watch out, but more of this is a statement. I know what you're going through. I've seen this. Maybe you want to watch out,
It's definitely a powerful message, which is similar to the song 365, which I'll play a clip of now.
There's a hurricane and it's on the way. Been sitting around this house for days. I'm in here waiting on the flood. Been hanging out and holding on to every word in our favorite song. These headphones are thicker than blood. If I could hit you right on a time machine, I would bring you right back here with me, and I wouldn't have to watch you disappear. Even though I said all the things that mattered most while I held on tight to the end of the rope, I could keep you close, but I couldn't keep you here. A lot can happen in a year.
Now, the band chose to drop two songs simultaneously. Dance Kid Dance went to rock radio, and 365 went to pop radio. Can you talk about the thought process behind that move? Because releasing simultaneous singles to different formats is something you don't hear a lot of in modern music.
No, and we've been fighting to do it for years. Literally, probably since the Amaryllis record. We've been fighting like, why can't we service a song over here and then service a song over here? And typically you get shot down by management or the label. Typically the label at the time would just be like, well, we don't have the funding to push both of these up the chart, and we don't want to, take away from this one if we're pushing this, and it becomes a political quagmire and nightmare. And you're like, yeah, but why not? And you can never get a really straight answer. And we were finally able to well, I say we. Nobody says no to Brent Smith, and he is a bulldog negotiator, and he's really grown a lot in the past 8-9 years as far as his shrewdness in business. And he basically doesn't take no for an answer. And you can see that in the climb of Symptom of Being Human. We were told no's a million times. It'll never do anything at How Do You See? It'll never make it to top 40. No, it's a great rock song, but they don't play that on How Do You See? They don't play rock. And he's like, well, why not? Let's just try it. And he was right. And it climbed the charts, and it did really well. It was a marathon, not a sprint. It took a minute, but they got it. Riding on the coattails of that, he could look at them all and go, hey, I proved it last time. Let's shoot for them all right out the gate. And that's what we're doing. And it's exciting. It's exciting for us after, a 24-year career so far of going, not only are we still relevant, but we're still growing. And, the debut of these two songs, at least in the radio world, are our best debuts we've had to date. The most added, the most this, the most that, the most. And we're like, all right, we're doing something right. And that's important to us. So it was really a fight for many years. And finally we got our way. We screamed, begged, pleaded, rolled over on our back, threw temper tantrums, and finally got our way. And I think it's proof in the pudding, and it's also for us, it's kind of like putting our flag in the ground and going, look, rock isn't dead. And we're not the only rock band out there that deserves to be on these other places. And hopefully they start paying attention.
Well, I want to follow up on that, because when you think about the last run of singles, which would be the poppier side of Shinedown in Get Up, A Symptom of Being Human and 365.
Yeah.
Is there ever a pressure that the label or anybody is putting on the band to maybe steer it more towards the pop direction?
If they came to us and said that, it would be the biggest middle finger we could ever give to them.
Good.
Because that's not who we are. That's not who we are. We write the song, and if it happens to be a pop song, it's a pop song. If it happens to be a rock song, it's rock. If it's a punk song, it's a punk song. We write for ourselves first. And I will give credit to both management and the label that we've been with the whole time, Atlantic Records. They've never once tried. Never once have they said, hey, we want you to try to write a song like this, or why can't you, or any of those things. Even in the early days, they've been supportive, maybe frustratingly so for themselves, because it is a business, it is a music business, but they've let us be ourselves. But if you listen back to the albums that we've put out there, just about every single record, if not all the records, if I think about it, have a little bit of everything on them. They really do. That's just what we do.
Well, when Eric and I talked, 365 and Dance Kid Dance were not out in the universe as of yet.
Yeah.
So I did my part as a podcaster in my years in radio, and I asked what dirt he had on Shinedown 8. And he alluded to a few songs like Searchlight, The Killing Fields, and The Pilot. Are 365 and Dance Kid Dance a strong representation of the sound and style that fans can expect from Shinedown 8?
No, not at all. It's as eclectic as we always do. There's going to be things that you're going to be like, oh, I didn't expect that. And there's going to be some that are like, oh, that took my head off. You mentioned Killing Fields. I'm like, wait till you guys get to hear that one. It's exciting. No. Is it a reflection of where we're at right now? Sure. But every song is its own little animal. And I think that's kind of the excitement of it. I think there's going to be some fun stuff that comes out that fans are going to really glom onto. And there's certain ones I'm thinking of in the back of my head. They're like, it's different. That one's different, but I love it. And then there's some that, oh yeah, that's just a straight ahead, hit you over the face, Shinedown rock song, and that, which I think Dance Kid is in a lot of ways. Get ready for a ride, just like we always do.
I'm not going to lie. Both you and Eric, when the Killing Fields came up, you both made this same like, ooh, you guys can't. Is there any timeline for when fans can expect to, I know I'm being greedy amongst Shinedown fans right now because you just released 2 new songs, but
right.
When will the next taste of Shinedown 8 be released?
I honestly don't know. This year, but we haven't even put a date on it. Right now, we're really focused on tour prep and building the stage show. Honestly, we spent time in New York. We filmed the videos for the 2 songs. We did some social media stuff. We did some press things. We did photos. And then we said, oh, crap, come the end of April, we're on tour. We've got to get this show together. There's been concepts and ideas, but now we got to work on trucking, busing, what we're putting in those trucks, renting those things, building the kits, building the lighting rig. What is this going to be visually? And that takes months of time. That takes a lot of work. So that's really where we are right now. We're just knee deep in that. And also because Eric is the producer of Shinedown, and pretty much the engineer along with his engineer, Eric Rickert, we also want to give Eric the time to work on his solo thing right now. So we got these songs out there. Now he can focus on the rest of his because he deserves that. And it's so awesome. And we're so proud of him. And I'm glad we finally twisted his crazy little mind to put it out there. I want him to be able to focus on that right now and in the lead up to when we're just going to be really too busy for him to do that anymore once we really start getting in the meat of touring.
And I wanted to ask, because the album is coming out this week, have you heard it all the way through? And if so, what your thoughts were?
I have heard it all the way through. I have it on this computer. I'm looking at you right now, and I've had it here for a couple years now. He wrote
explained that he sat on it for a while.
I love it. What I enjoy about it is it's all him, because he played every instrument on there. And I know he goes through and tells everybody he didn't play a drum kit, which he didn't, but he played all the drums on there. He would set bass drum up and snare and he'd play those parts. Then he'd play the cymbals. This is his brainchild. But I love more about it knowing him and knowing the background of the music he grew up on and the music that really excites him. I can point out in every single song, oh, that's a little bit of that's Outkast. Oh, that's theater. That's like Broadway theater theatrical things because his mom taught voice and he grew up kind of with a theater mom and piano in that way. And oh, that's the piano that would be like, and I love it because it's just an absolute reflection of him and how he grew up.
It's funny, your explanation there, I immediately thought of the song Azalea.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the rest of the record, you hear that, and if you go, "Oh, that's reminiscent of so and so," there's probably maybe a little bit of honesty in that. Not that the record is definitely all over the place. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's like his brain. It is all over the place in the story and the way it goes. It's almost schizophrenic in a great way. You're just like, where is this going? And it's a journey, but you do have these little things like, oh, that reminds me of so and so. Probably because it somehow deep in his brain came from that. Because he had the freedom to just, it's all him. It's all him. Nobody else had anything to do with this. And that's the cool part about it.
When the focus does shift back to Shinedown, I am going to press one more time on Shinedown 8 because, you know, it's going to come at some point this year. Is the working title just 8, or do you guys have something in mind?
That's literally the working title is 8. we have no idea what we're going to name it yet. You know, initially there was talks of Dance Kid Dance being the title of it because it kind of had that vibe in some respects. With Planet Zero and even with Attention Attention, they just quickly raised their hands. It was like, oh, yep, that's got to be the album title. That just fits. This one also not being a concept and just being a collection of songs, that one thing hasn't raised its hand yet. And each one of us, because the Shinedown is a democracy, we're all 25 percenters, but we're all very opinionated 25 percenters. So sometimes we'll see what happens. And you know, I'll give Brent the 26 because it's definitely you have to have a leader, and he is the leader of Shinedown proudly and should be. He's got the vision more so than anybody.
So what you're saying is the Enemies video is true to form. That wasn't acting.
No, that's our personalities. Except there's no way in hell Zach could kick my ass. So that whole scene's full.
The singles 365 and Dance Kid Dance are available now wherever you stream music. And I'll also have a playlist embedded on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com where you can check out all the songs we've talked about this evening, including a mix of some of my personal favorites from the band. Barry, this has been an absolute honor. Thank you so much for joining me on My Weekly Mixtape.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
And to all the My Weekly Mixtape listeners, if you want to continue your Shinedown fix, don't forget to check out the other Shinedown related episode that dropped just a few days ago, as Eric Bass joined me on the program to talk about his brand new solo album, I Had a Name, as well as all things Shinedown. And remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And finally, if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to upcoming episodes, chime in on future topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. Once again, that's patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.